Greetings once again, my friends, and welcome back to another episode of Geek News Marathon Night, where we take a series and we do an episode-by-episode analysis, but since they are bigger, we do them in bigger chunks. I am your host, Adam Mickelson, aka Drac. I hope everybody's having an awesome day or night when you're listening to this. And of course, joining me is my lovely wife, Andrea. Andrea, what did you do to my tongue?
You did it yourself.
See, there are so many things that can be implied there. It's just wonderful. Welcome to the internet. And today we're talking more Beyblade, Andrea. We're talking more spinning tops and whatnot, but more importantly, the conclusion of the Asia tournament and moving on into the next major arc. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into this. So we were excited going into the final round because this is basically what we wanted. We just didn't really like the setup for it. So let's start up with episode 17, A Score to Settle, which officially gives us Tyson versus Lee Tyson of the Bladebreakers versus Lee of the White Tigers. And it's also, because this has been a regular thing in the finals, we have yet another interesting dome that is being used to have them fight. And this one I actually want to say is interesting because it's basically a desert in a canyon kind of thing, because the bowl is like rock kind of deal, but the middle of it is straight up desert. And so at that point, like, you could easily get your Beyblade stuck in this sand trap and you're out, kind of thing. And so you have to play very interestingly with it. And this also plays to, I want to say, both of the character strengths, because we know that Tyson, with the storm attack, can blow away a lot of that sand, but we also get to learn a little bit more about what Lee and his Bit Beast Galleon can do. So walking into this match, Andrea, like, what did you think of the arena? What did you think of the stakes here? Are we still butthurt about the fact that it's not Lee versus Ray?
Well, the dome is cool.
I actually liked it because they had a tower like right in the middle, and it looked like straight out of like a Final Fantasy game or something like that. But we have our finals match between Tyson and Lee, and even though we actually do have a couple of interesting bouts out of it. I remember the first round was when we got to see what Galleon was capable of, which was basically kind of not a judo, I don't think it's a judo thing, it's a martial arts thing where you take other people's energy and utilize it for yourself, and that seems to be Galleon's kind of big thing that it can do, is that it has the, what did it call it? Dark lightning?
Yeah,
is what it was called.
Like
yeah, so basically it took Dragoon's energy and used it against him. But after that first bout, then Tyson's able to kick back in, and then we actually have a hard-fought third round where Tyson does take it. Or no, that's right. Tyson, it's not that Tyson takes it, it's that it ends in a tie. So they clash and they end evenly. And how did you feel about that when that happened? It was like, oh, okay, things are about to get interesting.
Well, that's going to be a very tiebreaker there.
Did you think what was going to happen for the tiebreaker was going to happen? Is it a good idea?
Well, then it probably gives an opportunity for...
Well, yes, but I mean, did you think it was a bad idea that they did it? No. So basically what happens, it ends in a tie. So now the refs basically decide that it's going to be one more match, except this time both the Bladebreakers and the White Tigers can pick their representative. So it doesn't have to just be Tyson versus Lee round 3 or round 4. And this is where we finally get what we want, because Ray steps up, broken ankle and all, and says, I want to do this. I want to take on Lee. And so we get Drigger versus Galleon.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the match that is more worth it because, unfortunately, we don't have the cool new dome anymore. It's back to just kind of a standard dome because nobody thought it was going to end in a tie. But we now just have a straight up conflict or a straight up, what's the word I'm looking for? Straight up competition between two former best friends kind of thing. Because everything we've seen up until this point says Lee and Ray were the best of friends until Lee somehow got butthurt because somehow Ray betrayed him and Ray didn't really betray him and all that. So we finally got what we wanted, Andrea. How did you feel about Drigger versus Galleon?
It was a satisfying.
What's even more satisfying about it is we actually learned this in the conflict with Tyson, but Lee does not like getting shown up from anybody whom he considers to be inferior to him.
Mm-hmm.
Because Tyson, believe it or not, gets knocked quite a bit in the final round because he's a new guy. He's not the literal way they make it sound is like because he hasn't been at the Asia tournament before, he is inferior to everybody. And this is where we get to see Lee's inferiority problem and how he doesn't like it. And actually, Tyson, funniest thing, uses that to his advantage in, I think it was round 2 or 3, either for the tie or when he beat Lee, where he basically just throws that back in his face. But now Lee is going to go up against Ray, who not only does he see to be inferior to him, but also is still butthurt about the fact that Lee walked off with the family Beyblade and all that.
Mm-hmm.
So, and overall, I want to say their match was pretty freaking good because it was a straight up tug of war. It was a straight up back and forth. And has, in my opinion, like the best ending we've seen up until this point, because where Galleon starts to try and use the Dark Lightning and starts to try to use Ray's energy against him, Ray basically shows what him and Drigger have learned since they have left the village and are able to take that trick and bounce it back to Lee and Galleon. And so then at that point, the bout does go to Ray and Drigger. He proves himself to be the true owner of the White Tiger. And immediately this is what softens Lee's heart and gets him to see the heart of the tops. I mean, the heart of the cards. And finally he's just like, okay, now I don't hate Ray anymore, but you have to come home and teach us everything that you've learned, kind of thing. And so we get to end on the friendship, what is it? The friendship handshake, the manly handshake between Ray and Lee. You're giggling, but I'm like, all right, I'm good with this. This is how a shonen anime episode should end.
Oh yeah.
But with that, the Bladebreakers have won the Asia tournament, and thus their first tournament in this series. Andrea, how did you feel about that?
It was a good way to end it.
Considering the matchups that we got, I'm very happy with what we got. The only thing that is disappointing is it would have been great to have Kai have come out in this, but then again, it's best of 3. So at that point, or not best of 3, not best 2-3. So if it was like best of 5, maybe we would have seen him, but we didn't. So you didn't get to see Dronzer. And Kai was very much Kai in the whole process. But I did like the fact that Max and Tyson basically walked in that tournament and everybody tried to tell them how inferior they were and how much of the world of Beyblading they didn't know and all that bullshit. And they got to throw it back in their faces because they won the Asia tournament. And that's how this episode ends, is with the Bladebreakers winning the tournament. What did this episode do right, Andrea? The Bladebreakers won the tournament.
Yeah, that's just basically it.
And I will also say, we got the matchup we wanted, which is the matchup that this entire thing teased. And I'm sure people are going to be like, see? you were gonna get what you wanted anyway. I get it, but they didn't have to give it to me. So we did get. I'll point that out as a positive. We got the matchup that we wanted, which was Lee versus Ray, and it worked out. Because how sad would it have been if we got Lee versus Ray and it was Andrea doesn't know wrestling terminology, but a total squash match. Ray just knocks Lee all over the place, and it's not even a fair match. How would you have felt if you got that instead of what you got? Just Ray mopping the floor with Lee. It wouldn't have been worth it to me, especially considering the conflict. Some people think that squash matches are like the greatest thing ever, and I'm actually the biggest opponent of them. I think they actually do eventually hurt matchups. And I like having that spirit of competition in there. Did this episode do anything wrong?
No, I think it...
I'm thinking. I will say Lee's inferiority problem got a little annoying after a while, but I can't say it's overall a bad, because then we got the intro scene of like Lee farreling out and doing the dark lightning. Oh, yeah. So I can't necessarily hold it against them, but I will hold this against them. Good God. The next time we see Lee, can you please figure out what the design of his nose is supposed to be? Good God. He has a small nose in one episode. He has a giant schnoz in another. And this one, it's just like, we're trying for just right, but we're going to take it just a little bit further in the big.
And you gotta love the avatar picture when they introduce him.
Oh, yes, because like we were even talking about this, that had to have been Lee's concept art. That had to have been like when they pitched Lee as a character. That's what got handed to the director of Beyblade, and he's like, "Go with it."
Oh my gosh.
I love that concept. Look, I know that we're making fun of it because it totally doesn't match what Lee looks like now, but at the same time, like that's actually a really great idea to reuse assets like that. So that's why I'm giving it props.
Maybe that was like a cameo of like, this is what we originally decided.
Yeah.
And we just wanted to show off the art.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize, but like when a character gets concept art, there's usually about 3 or 4 iterations before you get the official version. And so at that point, you got to see what Lee looked like when they originally conceptualized him. And I kind of like that. Yeah, not really any, the animation hiccups with Lee's nose aside. No, this was actually a really good episode. So at that point, out of 5, what would we give a score to settle? The episode itself, 4.5. Episode itself, 4.5, because you got to have Tyson stick it to Lee and basically saying, yeah, I'm the new guy, but there's a reason I'm here. But then you also got the matchup that I wanted, which was Lee versus Ray. And that did not disappoint. So at that point, as a lover of stuff like this, fuck yeah. So I'm good about it. 4.5, what about you?
I'm going to give it a 5. All
right. This is technically the last episode of the Asia tournament, so I kind of want to do this really quick. The Asia tournament as a whole, out of 5, good tournament, bad tournament.
It's a good warm-up tournament. Really.
That's what I'd say. I'd say it's like right down the middle, because it had stuff that was really stupid, like why Drigger left Ray, except he didn't leave Ray, etc. There was stupid elements in there.
I would say,
but it did end well. So at that point, yeah, right down the middle.
I would say it's kind of like almost like this is like the junior leagues, and then you're going to get into the big leagues later on. And
that being said, like, I've seen a lot more shonen than you. Mm-hmm. So at that point, like, is this, a Dragon Ball World Martial Arts tournament? No. Is it the Dark Tournament from Yu Yu Hakusho? No. Is it still good? Yes. Given the context, absolutely it is. There's definitely stuff that's better, but considering that this is Beyblade's first season, this is where it gets to establish itself, this is kind of where the bar's being set. So at that point, it's kind of difficult to say like, oh, well, this is just horrible because it's not the 257th World Martial Arts. I can't remember the numbers, guys. The 257th World Martial Arts Tournament, where the final match literally ends with both Tien and Goku falling, and whoever hits the ground first is the one that technically loses. No, but it's fine. So yeah, the Asia tournament, it's a good bar. It's a good bar to set. I would actually say it's technically a bit better than the Japan tournament that they had. Because, and this is going to sound stupid, it was longer.
Mm-hmm.
Matches were longer. There was a lot more to be able to get excited about. That being said, let's go ahead and move on to the next arc, right?
Yep.
Because now that's what we're doing. Episode 18, A Star is Born. So this is the post-Asia tournament moving into the next one. So the Bladebreakers are going to get a break where they can recover from the Asia tournament and be able to get back to their loved ones. Somehow Tyson and Max are not in trouble for missing a butt ton of school, etc. And we also get to, expand on their characters a bit, which is helpful because in this episode, because this is Tyson's first major tournament that he's participated in, aside from the Japan one, he gets a bit of a big head. Safe to say?
Yeah.
All right. And I'm not mad about this. Do you want to know why? Because he's a fucking kid. Any kid that wins a tournament like that is going to get a big head, right?
Especially when they realized they became famous.
Like, Andrea, I love you. But if you had walked out of like your first gymnastics tournament and had a big head, it would not have surprised me because you had started gymnastics, when you were 10?
Well, I guess.
Any 10-year-old who's going to have an accomplishment like that, they're going to get a big head out of it. There's nothing wrong with it. But it's what you do with it. And what they did with it was actually really good.
Mm-hmm.
Although I am starting to think that both Tyson and Kenny are a married couple. Because that's the whole premise here. Tyson gets a big head. He finds out that basically after the Asia tournament, the Beyblade movement in his local area, in his local town, explodes because they find out about, or like they're actually in the newspaper, and so that makes all of the kids want to be the next Bladebreakers, which is another thing that is acceptable and totally should happen. But because of that, Tyson gets a big head, and the best part about it is, and this is a total anime trope, especially if shonen stuff, he is the guy who was the team member of the Bladebreakers, and no one believes him. You didn't notice that?
Oh, yeah?
Like, he's like, well, I just so happen to be Tyson of the Bladebreakers, and everyone's like, no, you're not.
Yeah, it's common.
It's a common anime trope, but believe it or not, let's just say for the sake of argument, if Michael Jordan walked in the room and we were busy doing other things, and he came up and said, like, I'm fucking Michael Jordan, and I have 3 rings, and all that, we probably would look at each other and go, yeah, that's not very likely that we're in the same room as Michael Jordan. Right?
Well, because I'm pretty sure they'd be expecting them to be on their tour.
Right. And so at that point, I love that they basically took this and ran with it as something that Tyson gets to do. And believe it or not, this is something that a lot of tournaments do. Anyway,
and you kind of wonder how many of they actually know Tyson, like personally.
Well, you have the 2 friends that did, but nobody else did.
Yeah, but
I think the way that they figured out how to do that was actually really good, because a lot of the kids that we interacted with in this episode were younger than Tyson. So they weren't in his grade. They weren't like actively dealing with him on an everyday basis. That's why you could get away with the whole, no, you're not kind of gimmick. And so I love the hell out of that. But because Tyson's got a big head, he starts to disrespect his Beyblade a bit. Which, in a series like this, you don't do that. That basically makes about as much sense as that when Yugi Moto won. I need to stop doing Yu-Gi-Oh examples because you don't really know a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh.
I only know some Yu-Gi-Oh, but not all of it.
Ash becomes the champion of the Alola region.
Mm-hmm.
And then he immediately starts using the Pokeballs that have his companions that helped him win the victory as cup holders.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make more sense?
Yes, I know what you're...
Yes, he's disrespecting it. He's disrespecting Dragoon. And obviously Kenny takes offense to this. This is why they're the married couple, because he worked very hard to optimize Tyson's Beyblade and make sure that they could win. So obviously he's a little offended by it. And in turn grounds Tyson from his Beyblade until he learns the heart of the cards again. So I like that because right after that happens, we basically see a recreation of episode 1, where a younger kid who is basically getting the crap beaten out of, or the crap being beaten out of his Beyblade by what we're presuming was his school bully, and how that school bully is taking his Beyblade and just destroying this kid's Beyblade. And that immediately makes Tyson remember, like, he wouldn't like that either. And so it then becomes kind of this sub-arc that Tyson helps to not only rebuild this kid's Beyblade, because it's stupid levels of basic, but not only that, he brings people like Kenny and Max in to optimize it, and then they get to be the people cheering the kid on when he eventually faces his bully again and wins. Except this time, he doesn't do it the bully's way, right? He doesn't try to destroy the thing, and in fact, he befriends the bully in the end, because that's what fucking Gokus do!
Mm-hmm.
I make it sound like I'm mad, but like, no, it's just because this is the trope. This is the trope of shonen, is that you don't... There are characters that you're probably never going to be friends with. You know, like Tyson and Kai are not going to be friends. They are the Yugi and Kaiba of this series. But there is something admirable in Tyson in the fact that, like, when he wins, he goes, I want you to come back stronger than ever, because I want to do this again. And that's the lesson that kind of gets taught with this. And the other thing that I want to mention is, so we also get Max involved in that, because we're still kind of establishing Max. A lot of people, you know, you might forget that after the Asia tournament, but Max came in very quickly and didn't really get a whole lot of established characterization. So they basically used him as like, oh, well, Kenny and Tyson are fighting. Let's go get Max, and Max can help us optimize this Beyblade. I like that, because it once again reminds us that, oh yeah, by the way, Max's dad owns a Beyblade store. So he not only has access to a lot of different tools, but he has the know-how to be able to build a really good Beyblade. But then eventually Kenny does come back, and Kenny kind of helps iron out the details that maybe Max doesn't necessarily know. And also we get a ton of sexual innuendos from Dizzy, because that's all Dizzy's good for in this series, honestly. There are two things to look forward to every Beyblade episode: Dizzy's innuendos, and when Tyson is home, which is, by the way, one of the things that made this episode so good, Tyson's grandpa was back!
You like that guy.
I love him. He is so badly written, it's wonderful. Because he is such on a... I don't even want to call it a midlife crisis. He's on a late life crisis. So yeah, we got to see Tyson's grandpa again, and I hope we get to see more of him. But before we kind of wrap up this episode, we have two Bladebreakers that we didn't talk about. Ray we didn't see at all in this series. In fact, I think what they did say in the episode is he moved on to the next major tournament, but I don't think we got told what it was. Right? I don't think we got told where it was or what it was or anything like that.
Where Ray is?
or no, we know where Ray is. He went to the next tournament, but we didn't get any details on what that tournament is. And then we also but we did get to have a moment with Kai, where I guess we got to meet his grandfather.
Yeah.
I don't think it was his father.
No, it was his grandfather.
Who's apparently Dracula, because anime. That makes sense, right? But apparently we got a little bit more into Kai's family, where they're trying to establish Beyblade dominance and whatnot, especially with Dronzer. And so we got kind of a reassurance from Kai to his grandfather that hopefully at the next tournament their targets will show up and that Kai will be able to take them out with Dronzer. Dun, dun, dun! Kind of painting out that Kai's still not a good guy. Kind of like, what did you think when you saw that?
Oh yeah, they're up to no good. We don't know what it is.
Are they making trouble in our neighborhood?
Who knows?
Every time you say it, I say it in my head. When you say they're up to no good, and then I go immediately to Fresh Prince. I don't even know why. I don't like the series. Yeah, it's just basically establishing more that Kai still has his own agenda, and his agenda is maybe not a good thing, but it does get us intrigued at the fact of like, okay, you're looking for specific opponents, specific, and I think they do say like specific bit beasts that he needs to take out with Dronzer. So you at least get that. But that's how this episode roughly ends, or it basically ends with everybody saying goodbye to the Bladebreakers as they are heading out to their next tournament. What are your thoughts on A Star is Born, Andrea? What did it do right? What did it do wrong? I like it. It's a good interim episode. And it does the thing that a good kids anime should do, which is like, yes, you won a tournament and there were stakes. But remember, don't get a big head. There's always another tournament. And there's always going to be people that are going to be looking up to you. And when you act like an absolute douche nozzle, be prepared to have more issues. So that's me. What did you think? What did this episode do right?
I mean, it was a good little, like a break episode between tournament to tournament and stuff like that.
Okay. Would you say that this episode did anything wrong?
No, not really. It's kind of the expected.
I will. But that's just because I'm getting kind of tired of Kenny immediately going towards the nagging wife kind of trope. Look, I get it. You don't disrespect your Beyblade, right? But Kenny has two modes, which is basically he's calm and he's analytical, and then he's, for lack of a better term, nagging wife. He's like, no, Tyson, you don't understand. I stayed up all night slaving over your Beyblade. And so it's making me actually start to dislike Kenny as a character. And no, I'm not calling him Chief because he doesn't deserve it. He's not. To me, he doesn't deserve the title of Chief. But that's kind of my problem. But you have none.
Not really.
Out of 5, what is A Star is Born? 3. Right down the line.
Yeah, 3.
Right down the line. Because as much as I didn't like the whole, you're not respecting your Beyblade, I did like being able to see the arc that they were trying to tell.
Well, which one bothers you more, the nagging wife thing or the whole thing with when, like, you're insulting me, and with Max in that battle. When you stall him for time.
Oh, you're talking, yeah. Oh,
Which one did you thought was more annoying?
I don't think that's even a good comparison, but that's just because, like, the Kenny thing is a consistent thing, and that was a one-time deal.
True.
So it's kind of hard to compare them. So I have to say the Kenny thing because it's a consistent problem.
True.
Yeah, 3 out of 5 for me. What about you?
3 is fine.
Okay. Then we get to go into the next arc, which is going to be the next big tournament, which is going to be in the US. So then we get to move to episode 19, Under the Microscope. So the next major tournament is going to be in the USA. USA! USA! So we're conflicted in this one, right? Because the Bladebreakers are Japanese, but obviously we have to cheer for the US people. Fuck no. But we'll get there. So when we get this introduction, so that's where Ray went. Ray went to the US to probably go work at a Chinese restaurant so that he could then wait for the other Bladebreakers to get there. That's my immediate assumption on everything now, is Ray went to go work at a Chinese food restaurant and wait out the Bladebreakers
to arrive.
He's like, guys, you don't understand. I have the smell of dim sum just like straight up my nose all the time. So they arrive in the US, and the first thing that happens there is the Bladebreakers are invited on a tour of the BBA research facility. So this is the Beyblade Association, the company that we're assuming is A, running all the tournaments, and B, like hiring all the refs and commentators and things like that, and more importantly are doing Beyblade research. And so the Bladebreakers get to go on a big tour of the BBA research facility, where they're not only testing the future of Beyblading, so like the future competitors, but they're also basically trying to end world hunger with Beyblades. No, I wasn't kidding. We actually do have moments where they're trying to basically create never-ending power with Beyblades. You forgot that part, didn't you?
What?
Andrea has this look of like, did they do that?
Do what?
Where they basically were trying to solve infinite energy with Beyblades.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, no, they did. They did. They wanted to try and like make power available to everybody with Beyblades.
Well, yeah.
So at that point, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. And the most interesting part about this is that we find out that Max's mom, who is, I guess her name is Judy. I don't think we actually got told what her name is.
Yeah, I thought her name was Judy.
Is it? Okay.
Unless, what was the girl?
Is his last name Tate? I thought it was, because it says, the description that we have right here is like Judy Tate. Is his last name Tate? I could have sworn it was something else in the US translation.
I don't know. I guess we'll find out.
Okay. So, but his mom's name was actually Judy.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember her name actually being said.
Well, so. unless that girl, the assistant, was named Judy, I don't know.
No, I think her name was Emily.
Yeah, that's right.
So, yeah, Max's mom works at the BBA Research Center, and so Max and his mom get to have a reunion. That's the best way I know how to say it, is like, I hate to be the dick here, but for some reason, like, you've watched your share of anime, Andrea. When somebody meets their mom after a long time, what's the usual response to that? Like, Ash gets to see his mom and return to Pallet Town. What's the reaction that you would get?
A happy moment, I'm sure.
Run up, get a hug, all that. And this one was like, oh, Max, hi. That's the best way I know how to describe it.
Well, she was more invested in her work than her son.
Apparently so. And so we get to have that moment, but then we also notice that like Max's mom has a little assistant that is following her around, and they kind of continue the tour with Max's mom. And we actually get to see some of the up-and-coming Beybladers that Judy and her assistant Emily are working with in order to train the next generation of Beybladers. And of course, this leads into a conversation where the Bladebreakers basically challenge this new generation kind of thing. And even Emily, the assistant to Judy, is saying like she'll step up too, and she'll face them off. So we think it's like friendly competition, right?
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, Kai, I don't think has that impression. I think Kai's basically like, I'm not interested. And Max, ever since meeting his mom, is kind of like very down in the dumps. Almost as if the greeting that he got wasn't what he expected. Kind of like everybody else. How did you feel about Max during this whole deal where he's just like, he was so excited to see mom, and then all of a sudden he's,
It was.
I don't want to be here.
It's kind of depressing.
Right. And we actually get to have these matches, so it's basically another best of 3. I can't remember the other competitors because they were new guys, but basically I think it was Ray goes up against. No, Ray went up against the second one. Who went up against the first? Was it Tyson? Yes, it was Tyson, because so these are Beybladers that were trying unique gimmicks that hadn't been tried before. And so Tyson faced off against his opponent, which was basically a Beyblade rapper.
Yeah.
And apparently the rapping through his microphone launcher was affecting his Beyblade. I don't know how best else to explain it, guys. It was weird. It was kind of fun to watch, but ultimately Tyson wins. Then it's Ray up against the second kid, and this kid, apparently his gimmick is that he's an artist, and so his Beyblade would throw paint around the whole arena and then would basically disappear in all of the colors. Well, Ray's a Beyblade veteran. He's seen similar stuff like this and obviously trashes that kid. But then Max steps up and he's going to go up against Emily. And Emily has a sports gimmick to her. And this is where we kind of get teased that maybe Emily is a lot stronger than she's letting on. So her deal is that her launcher is a tennis racket. And if people haven't been paying attention, the outfit that she's wearing underneath the lab coat that she's wearing is a tennis outfit.
Yep.
And basically she launches her Beyblade by serving it tennis style. I have a feeling this is going to be a gimmick for the U.S. tournament. Because this is what the U.S. apparently is known for, is all the sport balls. And so it's Max up against Emily, and Max is trounced by Emily. Like, they basically make it look like Max never stood a chance. And what makes it even worse is that even if he had a chance, he was distracted by his mom. And that's actually ultimately, I think, what he decides his loss is based off of, is that his reaction to his mom is what made that so bad. But then we find out that this was actually a plan set up by Judy and Emily to test the Bladebreakers and see if they actually were going to be legitimate competition in the upcoming U.S. tournament. So this is where Mommy does a heel turn, basically. And now she is not a good person. And that's where this episode ends, by the way, is when Emily trounces Max with her tennis Beyblade. And I think that's also when we learn that she actually is part of the U.S. champion team. So what did this episode do right, Andrea, for Under the Microscope? Tyson's grandpa followed along, and he's the entertainment value for this tournament. Yes!
Yeah.
Yes! 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 Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, that was probably the best part of it.
And also, more importantly, Tyson's grandpa took his shirt off. We didn't realize we needed that in our lives. But we did, Andrea, and we're proud we have it. I love Tyson's grandpa. He's great. I cannot wait until we finally get Tyson's grandpa and Mr. Dickinson together like we've seen in the intro for Beyblade.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else that was done right here?
Not that I'm aware of.
Not really. The tour thing was kind of dumb.
And I'm surprised Mr. Dickinson wasn't a part of it, since he always seems to be around.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised too. Like, Mr. Dickinson was basically following them around because the Bladebreakers are Mr. Dickinson's team. So the fact that he wasn't there is kind of weird. In my opinion. What did this episode do wrong?
I'm just kind of surprised why...
I hate Max's mom. I hate this introduction. I wish that they didn't do it.
And I'm kind of surprised that she wouldn't consider, trying to talk Max out of, going maybe...
Or that she'd show that she'd care. She carried this boy around in the womb for 9 months.
Not to mention, it's why didn't she just find a way to
What, did she create an artificial Beyblade womb? Sorry, go ahead.
I'm just saying, I'm kind of surprised she didn't say, you should come and join up.
Yeah, you'd think she would have reached out. And she's just like, oh, Max. Hi.
Jeez, I can't remember if we ever find out why,
I now need to know if YouTube has a Beyblade abridged and see what they did with this moment. Sorry, go ahead.
I wonder if that's why you just don't see Max's mom and dad together or something.
I'll already tell you why, because Max's dad obviously is the parent of the year.
Well, plus I guess he values as a hobby or a fun thing, whereas his mom is
Max's dad is basically Yugi's grandpa. Except without the soul stealing.
She likes the whole science behind it, and
I don't even want to go with that because basically what you're saying, what you're kind of characterizing is she's the cold scientist. She's basically Hojo from FF7.
Well, I wouldn't say she's cold, but I would say I guess they just both kind of view Beyblade as.
Because I'll tell you what I got from her. I understand why Max's dad divorced her. But they never said that they were divorced. They're divorced. Trust me.
Unless they're separated.
No, they're divorced. Because if that's how that woman reacts to kids, especially kids that she carried, yeah, Dad probably looked at her and went, "Yeah, you're just not into this."
Oh, I would have probably been
as a mom, how did you feel watching that? Just think about if you saw yourself going, "Oh, Aria, hi." I think I almost saw sorry. I think I almost saw a tear get squeezed out. Yes, it's incomprehensible. So yeah, I'm not thrilled about Judy Tate's entrance.
And I'm kind of surprised, they're not full, they wouldn't have just stormed out when they just find out that they were just being.
Oh, we'll get there. So out of 5, what would we give Under the Microscope? I have to give it a 3 because here's the thing. I don't like the Max's mom stuff, and Emily kind of drives me. Emily already, I have a feeling I'm not going to like as a character because she's just basically for lack of a better term, a feminist pissant. Women are better, especially USA women. Yeah, I can tell you exactly where to take your tennis racket.
Yeah,
shut it.
I would give it a 3.
Because you had that stuff, but the Beyblade bouts, aside from Max and Emily, were actually pretty good.
I mean, there were some good moments.
We didn't expect to see a Beyblade rapper, and I kind of hope that guy shows up again. Because that's actually a cool idea.
Especially when you...
Not the painter one. The painter one kind of gave me a headache.
Especially when you were just upset when they think, oh, well, these are our toughest challengers, and when in reality
they were they basically they made them sound like they were the toughest challengers, but then at that point we found out that they're part of the starting class.
Yeah,
which was so stupid. So yeah, right down the middle, because there is good stuff here. I'm just not on board with Max's mom. So then we move into episode 20. It's all relative. Mike Kasu's gonna die during this arc. What can I say? So Emily properly trounces Max. This is when we find out that she is part of the All-Stars team, because we have to have another American reference. This is not even an American reference. This is a You Stupid Americans reference from Japan. But we find out that she's part of the All-Stars team, and the Bladebreakers are officially pissed that they did that. And rightfully so, by the way. I would think that the Beyblade Association would frown on tactics like this. But considering that Judy Tate is in a position of power in the BBA, I guess not. But the Bladebreakers, as retaliation, decide, since their information was stolen, because people got to see how Ray, Tyson, and Max fight, they decide, we'll just do some research on your team. And the way they decide to do so is by sneaking around the facility. Now we also know why Kai didn't involve himself, because he didn't want to give anything away.
Mm-hmm.
And they basically make it sound like Kai kind of saw the writing on the wall right off the bat and didn't want to get involved. And Kai actually thinks it's a stupid idea to sneak around the facility to see what you can learn. But basically all we learn is that they have a really unusual way of training their All-Stars competitors. I especially love the room where they had they were kind of like the tower that we had the Asia tournament in, where it's multi-tiered. We had one tier that was a basketball court. We had one tier that was a tennis court, and then another one which was I think it was a football field, wasn't it?
Something like that, yeah.
So we got to see that, and then we also got to see some of the the computer systems that they used for their Beyblades. And ultimately, when they come across Judy, they decide to follow her to a secure area with Emily and find out how heavily secure it is, which is when Judy basically catches Max and them trying to do it, and by then Kai is also joining in because Kai has nothing better to do. All the while, Tyson's grandpa is amusing everybody with his feats of strength in the cafeteria. I love that. But Judy apparently lured them all the way down there because she actually wanted them to go up against two other members of the All-Star team, which are Eddie and Steve. And I'm just going to go ahead and spoil this. One is a basketball player and one is a football player. Because that's all we stupid Americans all care about, right? Is that sport ball. I hate this gimmick. This is Gundam Maxter all over again.
Oh, yeah.
Because remember, his gimmick was football all over the place until you finally took that apart and you realized that Chippity Crockett was a boxer. But before you even got all that, you had Gundam Maxter, which was totally a football player kind of deal. This is a stupid ass stereotype that Japan does, and not funny. But we do actually get to have bouts with, I think just Eddie, because Eddie's the football player. And I want to say it was Ray that he went up against.
I think so.
I think it was. I think Kai ultimately saves them in the end, but it was Ray up against Eddie, and his bison-based Bit Beast. I can't even remember if that thing had a name, but okay. And then we get to have that bout, and guess what? Unfortunately, Eddie wins, and they basically continue to go off of like, well, there was a reason that we weren't there when you faced off against Emily, because it wasn't worth our time. But Eddie basically gets to sit there and say, oh, well, this basically confirmed the data. Like, you couldn't possibly stand up to the All-Stars. And we also find out that this is not the full team. Their leader is off doing other things because this wasn't worth his time. All the while we're dealing with this, Kai is apparently interested in the Bit Beast that comes out from Eddie. Max is still like, Mom, why would you do this? And that's pretty much how it ends, because they get out of the security situation that they're in. They basically get kicked out of the BBA Research Center, and they're on their way to the hotel before the tournament. And then the last scene that we get is the All-Stars meeting up, or Eddie and Steve meeting up with Emily and Judy, and basically saying, yeah, they're interesting, but they're not anywhere near our level, so to speak. And then we also get a very unusual thing that happens, which I think it was Eddie, or I think it was the basketball player kid, who asked, like, this is your son, why isn't he part of the All-Stars team? And Judy is dismissive of her fucking son. I'm not liking this woman. And also we then find out that Judy is not the one in charge. The BBA Research Center's major corporate backer is their leader, and ultimately wanted the All-Stars to have something of a face-off with the Bladebreakers to see whether or not the tournament was a shoo-in for them. And we basically get teased that, okay, well, it looks like this is going to be a rough tournament because the All-Stars know everything about the Bladebreakers, except they really don't. And the Bladebreakers know nothing about the All-Stars, which is ultimately not true either. Because you've now seen 2 of those players in action, and now you can plan around them. So that's the end of the episode. What did this episode do right?
I would say it was interesting to see that they had kind of artificial kind of created Bit Beasts.
Yeah, they were teasing that they were artificially created Bit Beasts. Which is, I think, what they've also said about Dizzy. No, Dizzy was a legit Bit Beast. She just got put into the computer instead.
She accidentally got into the computer or something.
Yeah, she's not artificially created. But yeah, that's the other thing too, and that's also what we're guessing is what piques Kai's interest. Is maybe that's because they're artificially made Bit Beasts. Which, spoiler alert, I think all Bit Beasts are artificially made. They basically made it look like these people this team might be Kai's targets. So we might see Kai be motivated and want to bring out Dronzer for this. I don't really have much that's positive on this. I mean, we got to have another matchup, but I could have easily waited until the tournament to get it. What did this episode do wrong, Andrea?
I'm just kind of surprised.
Max's mom! Sorry, go ahead.
I'm just kind of surprised, when they decided to go and sneak around the facility and all that. I'm kind of surprised Ray would actually go along.
Yeah, that isn't in fact, if I remember correctly, he was very gung-ho with the idea. I want to say Tyson was the one that brought up the idea, but then he's like, yeah, sure, Tyson, let's do it. And I think it was primarily because he was pissed that they did that to them.
Yeah.
But up until this point, Ray has behaved very honorably. And now he's not. Why?
And it's kind of funny that they kind of act like, like they were very upset that they were being watched and studied on while they were doing their battle.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden, oh, well, never mind. We just do that. Let's go just explore.
Which is really stupid too, because he was also of the opinion, like, you can study for us all you want. It doesn't matter because the heart of the cards are on our side. And he's the one that basically lost each time and didn't kind of stick to that. That was annoying. I did think about one thing that I will say that's positive, but I'm going to keep that until later. I do not like what they're doing with the All-Stars. I do not like what they're doing with Max's mom. This is the tired stereotype that I've seen in anime a lot, where like the only thing the US apparently cares about is sport ball. And I'm sorry, but there are a ton of different other gimmicks that you could have done. And maybe they're in this tournament, but I already don't like the All-Stars as a team.
I just find it very...
Like, the All-Stars compared to the White Tigers... Can I have the White Tigers back, please?
And I just find it interesting how Emily can manage to use her racket shooter or something.
It's all stupid, and it got worse because we didn't even talk about this, but we got to see Eddie's launcher was as a fucking football! I want to... Did we even see Steve launch his Beyblade? I think we got the teasing that his launcher was a basketball.
Yeah, but I don't think we saw him do a battle.
Yeah, no, we didn't see that, and I don't think we got even the teasing of like how he launches his.
But I think, and I think he's like.
Which, by the way, no diversity in anime. Black kid. I think they made Steve out to be a black kid. So, F all the DEI people. I just don't like how this is being set up. I don't like how the Bladebreakers versus the All-Stars is being set up. I will say that one thing I like here that I mentioned when we were watching this is that, like, so the White Tigers stuff in the Asia tournament was basically an arc for Ray. But it made sense because Ray was a mystery as far as we knew. Like, at this point, we had one Beyblade match to be able to determine things about Ray. That was it. Aside from Mr. Dickinson saying, oh yeah, he's been around the world like twice. That's it. And so doing this was actually doing the Asia tournament with the White Tigers was a cool thing. And so so the way you can look at it is, the Asia tournament was the Ray arc, where we got to learn about Ray and we got to see his motivations and everything like that. The way that they're setting things up here is that this is going to be the Max arc. Because Max got a lot of focus on this, not only with, because I forgot to mention this when they left, but Max's dad mentions his mom and kind of has a melancholy kind of look on his face when mentioned.
Yeah, didn't you at first thought that maybe she died or something?
The way that he kind of talked about it is like she might have died.
Mm-hmm.
But no, it was just a really painful divorce, and now I understand why he hated her guts. And so at that point, it's very clear that this is being set up to be the Max arc, and I'm okay with that because I like character arcs, especially if you're going to put them in tournaments, kind of thing, because it basically tells us as viewers that yes, we're going to have tournaments and we're going to have rivalries and things like that. But here is the focus. Here's who you're going to get to know in these episodes. Here's who we want to build, because the overall concept of this is that we're going to build up the Bladebreakers as a great team, and this is why you should acknowledge them, because I already know this, because my little brother watched the second series. They're the focus again. And I believe the premise in that is that they lose their vaunted position at the top and they have to re-earn it, kind of thing. And I like that concept. So I'm already on board with this. I just don't like how it's being set up. Is that, here's the thing that Max has to overcome. His mom's a bitch. That's kind of my issue with it. But out of 5, what would we give? It's all relative.
I give it a 3.
I'm giving it a 1.5. I don't like how it's being set up. I don't think it was a good idea to, like, Tyson recommending that makes sense, but what should have happened after that is Kenny should have pulled the Misty to Brock and yanked him by the ear back to the cafeteria, and nobody did that.
Yeah, but I think Kenny was just almost as curious about the technology and all that. I'm just kind of...
No, they lured him in too.
Yeah, but I'm kind of surprised, like, Ray's kind of like, yeah, let's go for it when
because let's be honest, Kenny was having a nerdgasm the whole damn time at all of the tech. So, but sorry, go ahead.
But it's like, I can just see Ray kind of like, I don't know if this is such a good idea, but he wouldn't, he'll go.
Yeah.
But
and then really what should have happened is Ray should have stepped up, because Ray is kind of like that moral compass right now. Because Kai wasn't going to do anything. And Max was too busy dealing with his angst to do anything about it.
But
Ray should have stepped up and said, that's not a good idea. I'm just
kind of glad that, like, Kai was like, oh, what was I thinking? Allowing them to go do something stupid like that and go.
Right. And he actually goes to try and bail him out, and I'm okay with that.
And I'm kind of surprised that they would, go sneaking around when it's like...
It doesn't make sense. It doesn't. Not with the characters that you've portrayed so far. I think even Tyson's grandpa would look at Tyson and go, this is not the right thing to do.
Grandpa, you're supposed to be the chaperone.
He was too busy flexing for the nurses.
Oh.
Or, I'm sorry, the lunch ladies. They sorry, but, they were dealing with a prime specimen right there. And that's roughly it. So out of these, we've got these episodes out of the way. I like the fact that they're setting things up for Max as a character to be able to grow. I just don't like where the growth is starting. I also don't like the All-Stars already as villains, because the whole thing that's supposed to make them interesting is that they're basically sports anime the team. And I'm not on board with that. Because
more antagonists than villains.
They're not even antagonists. They suck. So at that point, like, I am football guy. I am tennis lady. I am basketball dude. I don't even care who their leader is, because he's gonna have a sports gimmick attached to him. Although it would be funny if he was pro wrestling guy. That would be
maybe he's a pool
hilarious.
Sharpshooter.
No.
Maybe it's a checker.
I have a feeling I know what it is, but I'm just not on board with it. But yeah,
baseball, I think.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know.
But that's gonna go ahead and do it. So yeah, we're interested in where the US tournament is gonna go. But my only hope is that, some of the other tropes that would have been a lot better, in my opinion, to do. I hope we get those in the tournament. And maybe they're more interesting competitors than the All-Stars. But I guess we'll find out. Did you give your score on?
Yeah, 3.
Yeah, 3. That's right, because I was the 1.5, because I'm not liking the setup at all. But that's going to go ahead and do it for this episode. So thank you guys so much for joining us with this. Obviously, we'll be back with episodes 21 through 24. Yeah. It's 4 episodes every time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that'll actually almost put us at the halfway point of the series, so that'll be nice. But if you are brand spanking new and are a Beyblade fan, let us know what you guys think of these episodes in the comments below. Let us know where you what you think we got wrong and everything like that. And if you're joining us on YouTube, make sure to leave a like on the video and consider subscribing, because we're going to be doing obviously this series, but you might be able to check out some of the stuff we've done in the past and enjoy that. For example, we did a full review of Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood as a marathon night. And we just recently put up the review of Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, Star of Milos. So you guys could check that out. And you could also check out any future content and also leave suggestions on what that future content might be, because I actually do take you guys' feedback and I put it in a list and see if we can make it work. If you're following on podcast platforms, you can support us by following the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, Player.fm, and of course, Spotify. And that's going to go ahead and do it for us. Thank you guys so much for joining us. And we will see you guys next time as the US tournament kicks off in Beyblade Season 1.